So here we go. We had so much happening. Confirmations this week for Trump's cabinet. Two of the most dramatic appointees, Tulsi Gabbard and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are in. I think these two figures represent a departure from like previous GOP patterns of appointing cabinet picks.
Did you see the thing that when she testified, she was wearing all white, like she's a superhero or whatever, and then she gets sworn in and she's all black. Yeah, it's like, this is a new
here she comes
for the superhero here.
Here she comes. Funny. Well, so they were both confirmed. The votes were as expected, exactly along party lines, with the exception of the glorious Mitch McConnell defecting.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Like, if at the beginning of this year you said there's going to be one senator who, on the Republican side, is going to routinely vote no on these nominees, they're like, okay, is it Murkowski
or Collins, right?
Right. And I'm like, maybe Murkowski, but no, she's got a tough race. I'll go Collins. No, Mitch McConnell. You're like, what? Like, I think Trump's right when he said, like, this is just him getting back at me. It's a personal thing.
All right. So Josh, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., we have a Kennedy back in the White House for in a certain sense. And it is amazing. I mean, this is a disruptive pick in a way. I wanted to just lay it out there. What should RFK? He's headed to the FDA or something today to do something. What should he do first? What do you expect him to prioritize?
Well, I think he's. I like to try to remind people that there are a lot of Americans who are disaffected with both of the political parties. The smash mouth going for your throats, yelling at each other that both parties do, and I think, look. I'm not trying to denounce it. Like we are a very divided country. There are substantive differences between these two. It's not just a nonsense food fight. In other words, like it really is, a big battle. But there are a lot of Americans who think to themselves, like, with everything that's going on with Pfizer, these big corporations, why is the food different in this country than others? I mean, part of the reason why Americans are getting fatter is because we're sedentary and we're distracted by our phones. But so I just feel like, if you're talking about what RFK is probably going to first try to start to do, I think he's going to obviously he's probably got some ideas on things that he wants to, some pharmaceuticals he wants to be reviewed and stuff like that. But I do think he wants to push us away from some of the things like in this country, we subsidize corn because it's easy and cheap for us to make, but we subsidize it in large. And because we do so much of that, corn syrup, corn, all this stuff, there's a lot of products that are like cheap, like, corn chips, Doritos, all this kind of stuff that are artificially cheap because it's so cheap.
It's subsidized.
Right? It's subsidized, right. So in other words, we're, like people, I remember, talking with people about it and like, oh gosh, I want to eat healthy, but healthy food's so expensive. This other stuff is cheap. I'm like, the whole point is this cheap food is artificially cheap. Like, the quote expensive food that's really good for you. That's what food is. This other stuff is just kind of snacks or whatever. It's not food. And it would be nice to get, to think about some of the changes that we've made, like moving, like we moved away from frying in beef tallow to frying in vegetable oils. And there's some consequences to some of this stuff. And it's going to be nice to have somebody come through here and say, why do we do it this way? Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of our policy would, supposedly we have an FDA and a USDA so that this is the obsessive reason to make sure that we have healthy stuff that we're eating, right?
Right. Because, or drugs that we're taking.
Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, this all passed in 1906 because, the food was wretched. But now we get a situation where maybe there is a little corruption going on. Where companies are able to exert their influence and get stuff, passed. It's like, well, why is it that they get healthy, Fruit Loops over here? Not healthy, but healthier Fruit Loops in Canada, and ours isn't. Like, because we want this radioactive neon color. And it's like, I don't know if that's a good idea. Yeah. So I do think that's going to be one of his first things to do. And the thing is with that, RFK was able to tap into some of this independent sentiment, like, hey, finally somebody's talking about issues that we do really care about. Mm-hmm. And I think he brought with him, like his polls, I mean, he was 2 to 4% in the polls. He had a real opportunity to be kind of disruptive. And his endorsement of Trump did deliver a lot of voters.
It's true.
And so, it'll be interesting. Keep that coalition going, see if you can build on it because, Donald Trump winning the popular vote, you have to remember in the 21st century, Republicans won the presidency 4 times, 2 of which was not with the popular vote. So like,
Right.
not that it's required, but it would be helpful. Yeah.
It's helpful. Right. And I think like for me too, in addition to the food issue, and RFK, when he at his swearing in yesterday, he was clearly very moved. He said,
20 years I've gotten up every morning on my knees and prayed that God would put me in a position where I can end the childhood chronic disease epidemic in this country.
And a lot of people are worried about the vaccine thing. And obviously during his confirmation hearings, the Democrats were like, you're a vaccine denier and polio and all that. And I think the concerns, like I understand the concerns. We vaccinate our children for like the basic stuff, not on the schedule that the CDC recommends, but I think his response to those criticisms during his confirmation, it was just like, look, I just want the science, the science that can be replicated, studies that have been confirmed to be public knowledge and to be out there and to get a vaccine schedule, if we even need a schedule of required vaccines, that makes sense based on the science. And he clearly pointed to cases where that hasn't happened, right? And there's all kinds of, there's collusion between big pharma. So I think for me, it's the food, it's the medication. And then of course, on the abortion issue, he's going to be the head of the FDA, the CDC, the NIH, and actually getting to the bottom of what went on with the chemical abortion drugs, mifepristone and misoprostol. I want to know. And I think women deserve to know what these drugs are and why were all of the safeguards and stopgap measures removed in the last 12 years progressively by the Obama administration and the Biden administration. And that's really important because as we know,
the American people might be more willing to listen to RFK
exactly on that issue,
on this issue, because he's like, he
is pro-choice. Yeah.
You can't just automatically segment him like, oh, well, if it was like some, senator that was very well known for being pro-life. Oh, well, here's this pro-life senator's agenda. Now he's at the HHS and he's going to do all this stuff. Whereas Kennedy's like built up a reputation for saying, no, I think we really need to be clear about what we're putting into our bodies and that kind of stuff. So
exactly. Josh, we've had another delay, and it wasn't the Democrats. Kash Patel is still not confirmed as the head of the FBI. What happened? Where's Kash?
So this is the point. Like I thought Tulsi would have the toughest time getting the support of at least 50 senators or whatever. And, so Kennedy and Tulsi were voted on this week while J.D. Vance, the vice president, flew to Paris to do the big conference that they're doing on artificial intelligence. And he's continuing his European tour. He's going to other countries and stuff like that. A very active vice president. I think he's doing a great job. But as soon as I heard about that in the news, I'm like, oh, well, that means Tulsi and Bobby Kennedy already have the 51 votes.
They're confident, right? They don't need JD.
They don't need a tiebreaker. They don't need JD Vance to stick around or fly back. That would be terrible. So, but the fact that Kash Patel, that they don't have a locked in 50 votes just yet, or certainly not 51.
Okay.
So, like, I think they're still trying to work on a few of these senators. It could be that he has the support of 50, but he doesn't have 51.
He's going to need
they're
JD.
waiting for JD Vance to come by. They might need to do a tie-breaking vote on him. So I that might be the case.
Yeah. Because everyone was dunking on John Thune about this. Because John Thune had sworn that he would, in fact, stay, work weekends, get it all done. And then it turns out they're flying to Germany to participate in the Security Council. But you think this is just waiting for JD?
I think there's at least 3 Republicans in the Senate that have not committed to a yes vote, and therefore you don't want to bring up the vote and fail. So
okay, I like it.